Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today
Oh, cool.
into some really fascinating issues that are happening right now in U.S. politics,
Okay.
especially all this debate surrounding social programs of wealth inequality
Mm,
and even a potential government shutdown.
right.
And to help us break down all this,
Okay.
we've got an excerpt from a recent interview
Okay.
with a U.S. senator who's actually been going all over the country
Right.
and trying to raise awareness about these very issues.
It's pretty amazing how this senator's really pushing to get these topics,
Yeah.
out in the open, like really trying to make people pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah, they're not afraid of a challenge.
Exactly.
So let's start with their stance on Ukraine.
Okay.
They completely disagree with any suggestion that Zelensky should, resign.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that the U.S. has got to keep supporting Ukraine.
Yeah.
Absolutely essential to protecting democracy, they say.
Yeah, and I think that viewpoint really resonates with a lot of people in the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
Who are really worried about what Russia is doing and see this as a turning point
Right.
in global politics. But at the same time, we can't ignore that there are also folks who are saying, hey, maybe we need to be a little more cautious here.
Right.
They're concerned about the risks and the costs of being involved in this for too long. And some people are even suggesting that maybe a negotiated settlement is the best way to go.
Right.
Even if it means both sides have to give a little. It could be the best way to prevent things from getting even worse,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's so important to look at it from all sides.
Absolutely.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about some of the domestic issues that the senator's been focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things is they're totally against any cuts to these programs like Medicaid and Social Security.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is especially in light of all those reports about these huge payment errors within these systems.
Yeah, it's crazy. They have over $100 billion.
We're misallocated just in Medicare and Medicaid this year.
This year alone, that's a staggering amount.
It's just unbelievable. And it really underlines how important it is for the government to be accountable, and make sure that the money taxpayers are giving is actually being used the right way.
Sure.
But then it also raises all these questions about how to be fiscally responsible, but also protect these vital programs so many Americans rely on.
Yeah.
It's a really tough balancing act.
Definitely a tricky situation.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the senator's position on this contrasts with what some other big names are saying.
Oh, right.
Like Elon Musk, he's been calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme.
That's right. He's really stirred up some controversy with that statement.
Definitely has.
It's important, though, to really unpack what he's saying and understand the nuances of how Social Security actually works.
Mm-hmm.
Because while there are some real concerns about whether it's sustainable in the long term,
with people living longer and the workforce shrinking, we have to remember that this is a program that has consistently paid out to eligible Americans for decades.
Yeah, for years and years.
And as the senator pointed out, if a system's been working reliably for that long, maybe calling it a Ponzi scheme isn't the most accurate or helpful way to frame the issue.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And instead of trying to dismantle these programs, the senator's actually got a different idea.
Okay, what's that?
Their solution is to lift the cap on taxable income for Social Security.
Interesting.
They say this could solve the funding problems and maybe even let us increase the benefits.
Wow, that's a pretty big proposal. And it really gets to the heart of the whole debate about wealth inequality and how we decide who should bear the cost of supporting these social programs.
For sure. And this senator is really arguing that the people who are earning more should contribute more to make sure everyone has what they need.
Makes sense.
Especially the most vulnerable people. And to really drive that point home, they're talking about how much seniors are struggling financially.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Did you know that half of elderly people in the U.S. are trying to live on less than $30,000 a year?
That's just not enough.
It's barely enough to cover the basics.
No, it's not. And it really makes you think about the real-world impact these policy decisions have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears one more time.
Okay.
This senator has also been very vocal about something they call a growing oligarchy in the U.S.
Oligarchy, huh?
Yeah, they've actually been campaigning against this trend.
Interesting.
Arguing that we can't just sit back and let this happen.
So this is where the conversation gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because there's a real split within the Democratic Party on how to handle this.
Yeah.
This senator is saying we need to take action now, challenge those in power. But some Democrats are saying, hey, maybe a more passive approach is better.
What do you mean?
They're suggesting we kind of lay low and let the other side self-destruct.
Wow. That's a pretty risky strategy.
It is. It's definitely sparked a lot of debate. You know, there are arguments for both sides.
Yeah, I can see that.
Some people think letting the opposition make mistakes could create an opening for a more progressive agenda.
Okay.
But then others are worried it could backfire and make things even worse.
I see what you mean.
Yeah.
So where does this senator stand on this whole playing dead strategy?
They're not a fan. They've actually been very clear about rejecting that approach.
Oh, yeah.
They say it sends the wrong message.
Yeah.
And basically means we're giving up on fighting for the working class.
It sounds like they believe it's super important to actively push back against the influence of billionaires.
Exactly.
And this whole system that seems to favor the wealthy.
Right, and they're pointing to concrete examples.
Like what?
Well, like the number of billionaires who've been given important positions in the current administration.
Yeah.
They're basically saying this is a clear conflict of interest.
Yeah, I can see that.
And that the government is no longer truly serving the people.
That's a bold statement. And they're using some really strong imagery to get their point across.
What do you mean?
They're actually invoking Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
Oh, wow.
Talking about a government of the people, by the people, for the people.
That's smart. It's a way of framing the whole debate.
Right.
In terms of basic American values and suggesting that we've strayed from our original purpose.
It's definitely a powerful argument. And it's coming at a time when tensions are really high.
Especially with the government shutdown deadline right around the corner.
Exactly. This senator has said they won't support any bill that includes cuts to the programs they've been fighting for.
So the stakes are incredibly high.
So high. And we're going to be right back after a quick break to talk more about this.
Okay, sounds good.
So don't go anywhere.
All right.
We'll be back in a flash.
Looking forward to it.
So this potential shutdown really puts everything into perspective.
Right, really highlights the core issues.
You know, on one side, you have folks saying cuts to those social programs are totally necessary to be, fiscally responsible.
Oh, right.
And then on the other side, you have people like this senator who are saying, no, these programs are essential.
Right.
They're a safety net.
A vital part of the social contract.
Exactly. And this senator really sees this whole standoff as part of a much bigger problem, which is the growing influence of really wealthy people and corporations on government policy. They even use the word oligarchy.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong word.
It is. And it's a word that resonates with a lot of people.
Oh, for sure.
Who feel like the system is just rigged against them.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting how they're tying this debate back to some really core American ideals.
Oh, like what?
Like the principles in the Gettysburg Address.
Right.
They're saying we're at a real crossroads, and we have to decide what kind of country we want to be.
Yeah, we have to think about what it really means. To have a government of the people, by the people, for the people.
Right, especially today.
Yeah.
When, we have so much wealth inequality.
Right.
And there's so much debate about the role of government in addressing social issues.
It's all connected, and it brings us right back to this potential government shutdown.
It does. The senators made it clear they're willing to fight hard for those programs.
Even if it means a shutdown.
Even if it means things come to a standstill.
It's a tough situation, and it really makes you think about political strategy.
I know.
Is it better to hold firm and not budge on your principles? Or is there a way to find some middle ground without giving up what you believe in?
It's a tough question. And honestly, there are no easy answers.
No, there aren't.
Yeah.
But what's clear is that this senator isn't afraid to shake things up.
Right.
And stand up for what they think is right.
Absolutely. Even if it means going against the grain.
Exactly. And that's really what makes their perspective so interesting. They're pushing us to look at some hard truths.
About ourselves.
Yeah, about our political system and the choices we're making as a country.
And they're asking us to really think about who benefits from the way things are.
And who gets left behind.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
We've been talking about this senator's vision of a government that truly serves the people.
Right. A government that puts the common good first.
But what does that actually look like in real life?
That's the question, isn't it?
What role should the government play in tackling things like wealth inequality, social welfare, global conflicts?
These are questions we all need to grapple with.
We do. And there's no simple answer.
No, but by talking about these issues, by listening to different viewpoints, and by thinking critically about the choices we make, we can start to build a world that's more just and equitable for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been great talking about this.
We hope this has encouraged you to keep learning and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Stay curious out there, everyone.
It's been quite a journey.
It really has.
Exploring all these different facets of U.S. politics today.
Yeah, from that conflict in Ukraine to the possibility of a government shutdown.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to process.
It can feel a little overwhelming sometimes, right?
Oh, absolutely. All the information and all the different opinions out there.
But that's why it's so crucial to really engage in these conversations.
Right.
Think critically, analyze what we're hearing.
Absolutely. And that's what we've been trying to do in this episode, presenting different perspectives, really breaking down those key arguments.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We talked about this senator's strong support for Ukraine,
Right.
their unwavering defense of those social programs, and their worries about the growing influence of wealth and power.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
Yeah.
But we've also tried to make it all relatable.
Yeah.
Understandable for everyone.
Definitely, because at the end of the day, these aren't just abstract political debates.
Yeah, they're not.
They have real consequences for real people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They affect our families, our communities, our future.
It's about all of us. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
We've heard this senator's vision of a government that's truly for the people.
Right. Putting the common good first. But what does that actually look like?
When we get down to it.
Yeah, what should the government's role be in dealing with things like wealth inequality, social welfare, global conflict?
These are big questions.
Yeah.
And there's no one right answer.
No, but by talking about these things, listening to each other, and really thinking critically,
I agree.
We can start creating a world that's more equitable.
A better world for everyone.
Exactly. That's a great point to end on. It is. We hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity.
Yeah.
Encouraged you to keep exploring these issues.
Absolutely. Keep those conversations going.
With your friends, your family, your communities.
And most importantly, stay curious.
Thanks for listening, everyone.